everybody, a very warm welcome to the thorough newspaper analysis for the 8th and 9th of March. This is a combined video for both of these dates. Now let's proceed to the agenda for today. So first of all, you know the drill. We have the editorial segment, and here for discussion for today's purpose, we've taken up an article that featured in Indian Express, and the title of this article is, "What is India's Disability Law? How accessible are government buildings to persons with disabilities or special needs?" Here in this article, what you can take away home for your exam perspective is, what is the parent law so far as the rights of persons with disabilities is concerned? Then what is the UN convention in this regard? When the entire progression of how the present law it came about. Then you'll also have a look at some of the guidelines that the central government has issued in order to make the public infrastructure in general more accessible for persons with special needs. Now, this is going to be followed by news updates for the day. And lastly, we talk about the legal news of the day. So without further ado, let's start with the editorial. The title of this editorial is, "What is India's disability law? How accessible are government buildings to persons with disability?" So let's first see the context, the why of this article. See, recently, the Central Public Works Department, which is the flagship infrastructure construction and maintenance agency of the central government, it passed an order. So what did it say in its order? It has asked its regional offices to make sure that all public buildings, they're absolutely accessible to people with special disabilities. With special needs or with disabilities. So यहाँ पर हुआ क्या है? Recently, central government की infrastructure construction and management की जो parent body है, the flagship organization and body, which is the Central Public Works Department, इसने एक order issue किया है, and it has asked its regional departments that you make sure कि जितनी भी public buildings है, the public infrastructure, वो accessible हो for people who have special needs. And what was the center? As in, उन्होंने public जो buildings है, infrastructure है, उसको हम कैसे ज़्यादा accessible बनाएं? उसके लिए उन्होंने क्या बोला है? Does this order contain something on that? So here, see, the order stated that lifts, they must have both audio announcements and visual displays and emergency evacuation routes for persons with disabilities. So this is what has been stated, that जैसे lifts है, so it is stated that you come up with ways that there is audio announcement in the lift, and if there is somebody who's visually challenged, so then you come up with something else so that the person is able to receive that sort of information as to what is going on in the physical environment. Secondly, this order, it aims at much delayed compliance with a law that came into effect almost 7 years ago, and more than 16 months after the government published guidelines laying down standards for universal accessibility in the country. Now, what is this law? What is this few months ago guidelines that the central government has issued? Let's understand that. So what is India's disability law? The disability law that currently is in force, which is governing the subject matter, it is called the Right of Persons with Disabilities Act of 2016. It gave effect to the United Nations Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So United Nations has a convention by the name of United Nations Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities. This convention was adopted by the UN General Assembly in December of 2006. Later, this entered into force, as in it came into force 2 years later, that is in 2008. India, it ratified this convention in 2007. So because India ratified this convention, India was under obligation to follow a certain sort of norms in order to adhere to the spirit of this convention. And therefore, exercising its powers from therein, the government, in order to respond to that obligation rather, government ने ये law enact किया, and this law is Right of Persons with Disability 2016. The 2016 Act, which repealed and replaced the Persons with Disabilities Equal Opportunity, Protection of Rights and Full Protection Act of 1995, it commenced in April of 2017. So इस एक्ट के पहले जो इस सब्जेक्ट मैटर को गवर्न करने के लिए एक्ट था, that was the 1995 Act, which is called the Persons with Disabilities Equal Opportunity, Protection of Rights and Full Participation Act. It mandated the central government to notify guidelines and standards for public buildings and to review them from time to time. And also, जैसे ही हमारे जो technological advancements है, our understanding of how infrastructure can be made better, so you revise those guidelines. So that was a mandate on the part of the government. Now let's see what is India's disability law. Now I'm trying to switch this video to some other place, but I think on my screen now it is switched, but I don't know if you'll be able to see the video on the bottom of my of your screen. So in case it is hampering this text, I'll read it out. So the heading says, what is India's disability law? See, the first set of guidelines, which is called the Harmonized Guidelines and Space Standards for Barrier-Free Built Building for Persons with Disability and Elderly Persons, it was published in March of 2016. So this is the parent law, which is the 2016 Act. And in 2016 March only, the central government came up with certain guidelines. वो guidelines कौन सी थी? Harmonized guidelines and space standards for barrier-free built environment for persons with disability and elderly persons also. तो ये guidelines आई March 2016 में. अब हम देखते हैं कि इन guidelines पर कितनी compliance हुई and later guidelines जो है वो revise कब हुई, if at all it is revised. So these guidelines, they were reviewed during the COVID-19 pandemic by the department itself, the government, and also this was reviewed by the work of these three agencies, collaborative agencies. One is your Central Public Works Department itself. Secondly, there is a government-funded think tank, which is called the National Institute of Urban Affairs, and a team of experts from IIT Roorkee. So they reviewed these guidelines, and as a result, in October of 2022, the Central Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, it notified an updated document, and what is the name of this updated document? It is Harmonized Guidelines and Standards for Universal Accessibility in India 2021. So currently we have these guidelines and this particular law in place. So what does the law mandate for public buildings? There is a rule. Okay, so now I'm sure all of us know कि काफी बार क्या होता है, जो स्पेशल स्टैट्यूट्स होते हैं स्पेशली उनमें ये ट्रेंड हमें देखने को मिलता है. लेट्स से पॉक्सो एक्ट हो गया या डीवी एक्ट हो गया, तो इन एक्ट के एंड वाली सेक्शंस में हमेशा सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट या स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को एक डायरेक्शन होती है दैट in order to bring into effect the substance of this act, you make certain rules, and उसी की compliance में often rules are made. So similarly 2016 का जो पेरेंट एक्ट है, इसी एक्ट के पावर को यूटिलाइज करते हुए कुछ रूल्स लाए गए थे 2017 में. उन्हीं रूल्स का एक रूल है रूल नंबर 15. So rule number 15 of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Rule 2017, which flowed from the PWD Act, which is Person with Disabilities Act, it covers accessibility of physical environment, transport, and information and communication technology. Every establishment is required to comply with the standards in the Act, which for public buildings were the 2016 harmonized guidelines. So essentially, by virtue of this rule, it is mandated upon every building, it is mandated that every public building, it is made and constructed in such a manner कि जो 2016 की guidelines थी, आप उनके suggestions को incorporate करें. So this is a mandate. Now last year, Rule 15 was amended एंड जो पहले 2016 की गाइडलाइंस थी उनको रिप्लेस करके 2021 की गाइडलाइंस को वहां पर मेंशन कर दिया. सो विच मींस इट इज मैंडेटरी दैट द 2021 गाइडलाइंस दे आर अडहेयर्ड टू एंड उनकी कंप्लायंस हो. The 428 पेज गाइडलाइन जो 2021 की गाइडलाइंस है and standards covered everything from planning and tendering of building projects to specializations for ramps, grab rails, lifts, toilets, and other accessibility features. So it covers holistically everything. Okay, so now let's see what does law mandate for public buildings? It is continued discussion. So they recommended the guidelines. It recommended that universal accessibility, it should be incorporated in the site planning and detailed working drawings of the project. So whenever the planning, the infrastructural construction planning of any project is being done, make sure that all of the guidelines, the standards which are required by the 2021 guidelines, they are followed. The guidelines also covered the implementation, evaluation, and maintenance stages also. All building plans, they are required to adhere to the guidelines and the standards. Existing buildings must be accessible within 5 years. Now, what do we do with the existing building which do not comply with these guidelines? So here, a time period of 5 years is being given that you come and ratify the buildings, as in you make the changes which are needed and accommodate the infrastructure as per the guidelines. So now let's see what has been done since the guidelines were notified. Guidelines came about in what? We have the 2021 guidelines. So let's see what has been done so far post the release of those guidelines. The recent order or instruction of the department to its regional offices in an office memo which was issued on 1st of February, it sought compliance with two specific provisions in the 2021 guidelines. What are those specific provisions? One is audio announcements in lifts, and secondly, marking of evacuation routes for persons with disabilities. So you make audio announcements in lifts compulsory, and also marking of evacuation plans and routes for persons who have special needs. States, they are yet to incorporate the harmonized guidelines into their building bylaws. So this is yet to be done on part of the state governments, even though the think tank of the government, it has been advocating this and holding workshop for the stakeholders, but there is a delay on part of the governments here. So this is something that the think tank's person concerned has said. He has stated that our work with cities and government agencies, it involves developing training modules and procurement of instruments, and information, education, and communication content to ensure inclusion at all stages of project development and implementation. We have trained more than 1,000 stakeholders in over 30 cities. So this is just reflecting on the fact that the government think tank is also actively participating for the disbursement of right sort of information and training the stakeholders involved. Next up is, what is the status of accessibility in public buildings? Now let's see currently the public infrastructure that we have, how accessible are those buildings for persons with special needs. So under the Centre's Accessible India campaign, which was launched in 2015 with the aim of making public buildings, transportation, and websites accessible for persons with disabilities, every sector and ministry were given targets of enhancing the proportion of accessible government buildings by adding ramps and accessible toilets and all of these. Now, access audits, they were carried out in nearly 16,000 plus buildings in nearly 48 cities in various states and union territories. Now, the central government received financial proposals for retrofitting of nearly 1,400 or 1,500 buildings, work in nearly 1,300 buildings It has been sanctioned. 623 buildings in 20 states, they have been retrofitted. And social justice ministry, this entire figure, it has been quoted by the social justice ministry in Rajya Sabha on December 30. This number, I'm sorry, is not 16,000, it is 1,600, nearly 1,700. The government's reply also asked and said that 2,839 state government buildings, they had been identified for retrofitting using the state's own funds. Now, let's briefly see as to what is the response of those who are actually the real stakeholder of all of these laws, guidelines, the persons with special needs. So, according to persons with disabilities and activists, the 2016 guidelines, they were never implemented. And as per them, the 2021 guidelines are also being treated similarly. That is to say, there is some sort of a delay, a very relaxed sort of an approach. Till now, no state has implemented the harmonized guidelines in their building bylaws. No state government has taken up the issue of accessibilities. This has been said by someone who is impacted. So this is also further highlighted by the Director of Diversity and Equal Opportunity Center. And it has been stated that the implementation of accessibility standards, it has been haphazard. There is no consistency. There is a lack of budgetary allocation and no monitoring and sensitization. For instance, there are tactile paths at airports, but you will find that trolleys, they have been placed there, making it unusable for persons with disabilities. And the department's memo, as per this concerned person, it is vague and it may lead to unnecessary wastage of the resources. So I hope this article will help you in, let's say, your essay or interview portion. This, in fact, is a very important matter which is to be taken on a very serious note, because all of us should have access to all the resources very equally, and those who are in special need, their requirements should at all levels be considered, and appropriate measures should be taken. So on this slide, let's proceed further with the next segment. Okay, so let's start with the national news segment for today. And the first update here is with respect to Atal Innovation Mission. So Atal Innovation Mission, NITI Aayog and Meta, they've joined hands to establish something called the Frontier Technology Labs in schools. So in an effort to democratize future technologies, and by democratizing future technologies से हमारा क्या मतलब है कि हम ऐसी environment develop करें कि all of these facilities वो easily हर एक person को available हो, regardless of their economic resources or not. So in an effort to democratize future technologies and empower youth to innovate, Atal Innovation Mission, NITI Aayog and Meta, they've announced the launch of Frontier Technology Labs. So exam perspective say, please remember all of these three agencies and the launch, what is the initiative that has been launched and its purpose. So Atal Innovation Mission and Meta, they will partner to set up these labs in schools of strategic importance to ensure that students from diverse background across India, they will have equal opportunities to learn and engage with frontier technologies. Initially, ये हमने हमारे TNA में भी बहुत बार इसके बारे में बात करी है. Till date, Atal Innovation Mission, it has established nearly 10,000 Atal Tinkering Labs in schools across 722 districts in India. अब ये labs होती क्या है? ये जो अटल टिंकरिंग लैब्स है, इन्हीं का एडवांस वर्जन इज दी फ्रंटियर टेक्नोलॉजी लैब. यहाँ पर स्टूडेंट्स आर गिवन एन अपॉर्चुनिटी टू एंगेज विद अ लॉट ऑफ एडवांस टेक्नोलॉजिकल इनोवेशन, जैसे कि IoTs, इंटरनेट ऑफ थिंग्स, AI, एंड ऑल ऑफ दीज टेक्नोलॉजिकल एडवांसमेंट्स. Next up is Prime Minister presented first National Creators Award. So speaking at the event after presenting the first ever National Creators Award at Bharat Nandapam, which is in New Delhi, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he has underlined the potential of content creation and he stated that content creators can take India's branding to a new height at the national and at the international levels. He exhorted content creators to start a Create on India movement to share India's stories, our culture, heritage, and traditions with the rest of the world. The National Creators Award, it is an effort to recognize excellence and impact across domains, including storytelling, social change advocacy, environmental sustainability, education, gaming, and others. I'm sure some of your favorite creators might also have been awarded. So you may go ahead and have a look at the list. Next up, this is also an important update coming from the state of Kerala. Kerala launches India's first government-backed OTT platform. It is called CSpace. Kerala has launched the first government-owned OTT platform, CSpace, with Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan describing it as a decisive step in the onward journey of Malayalam cinema. What is the aim of this launch? As in, why government is indulging in something as OTT platforms? So its aim is to promote good cinema without hurting the interest of the producers and exhibitors. A total of nearly 42 films, they have been selected in the first phase for streaming on this platform, including 35 feature films, 6 documentaries, and 1 short film. The platform, which operates on pay-per-view basis, it allows viewers to watch a feature film for rupees 75 and shorter content for even much lesser price. Next up is an update from the state of Jharkhand. Jharkhand Widow Remarriage Promotion Scheme. Jharkhand Widow Remarriage Promotion Scheme, set to be launched by the Chief Minister of the state, it aims to provide financial support of rupees 2 lakh for widows and to widows who choose to remarry. This initiative seeks to empower widows, enhance their living standards, and integrate them into the mainstream society. Earlier, the Jharkhand government, it presented a budget of nearly rupees 1.2 lakh crore for financial year 2024-2025. India's first National Dolphin Research Centre finally has become a reality. This is an important update. So, India's first center for research on conserving the endangered Gangetic River dolphin, this center, it is called the National Dolphin Research Centre, located close to Ganga River in Patna. It was inaugurated by the Chief Minister of the state of Bihar. Earlier, Bihar accounted for nearly 50% of the world's river dolphin population. But the habitat, it is now under threat. This is an important pointer from GK point of view also. The Gangetic dolphin, river dolphin, it is India's national aquatic animal. It is a Schedule 1 animal under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. It has been declared an endangered species by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. So it is an endangered species, and in order to conserve the endangered species, this center has come about. Next up, another important update. Law Commission recommends new law to protect trade secrets. The 22nd Law Commission, which is headed by Justice Ritu Raj Awasthi, has recommended that new legislation is to be introduced to protect trade secrets, with exceptions relating to whistleblower protection, compulsory licensing, government use, and public interest. So what is trade secret? See, it is a form of intellectual property right, an IPR, and this is an IPR on confidential information that may be sold and licensed. They derive their value from being kept as a secret. However, unlike other forms of intellectual property like rights, like we have copyright and all of those laws in place, trade secrets so far did not have a legislative backing. So, trade secrets can be protected indefinitely. This is also to be pointed out. Currently, India lacks a specific law for the protection of trade secrets. Instead, they are safeguarded under the general laws governing contracts, common laws, criminal laws, and principles of breach of confidentiality and that of equity. The concept of trade secrets, it first came to the limelight in the year 1977 when the government asked Coca-Cola to hand over the formula for its cola drink, which led to the company exiting India to re-enter only a decade later. So then the concept came to the limelight and to the mainstream. However, the National Intellectual Property Rights Policy of 2016 and the Parliamentary Standing Committee report, they've brought back focus on the need for introducing legislation to deal with trade secrets, the report informs. This is a very interesting update. So, you know how AI has become such an integral part of our lives, and I'm sure all of you have heard this buzzword AI so many times, especially with Chat GPT and all of these programs coming into the market. So Kerala has introduced its first regenerative AI teacher called Iris. In AI, it has made learning fun and easy, that we all know. So here, Kerala school has introduced a humanoid as a teacher. Here, this is a picture. Named Iris, the humanoid was unveiled last month at KTCT Higher Secondary School in Thiruvananthapuram in collaboration with Maker Labs EduTech Private Limited. The humanoid can speak 3 languages and is able to address difficult questions and has the potential to help the students out in the learning process. Next is an update about important days for the day. So the important day is with respect to 7th of March. It is Jan Aushadhi Diwas, the generic medicine day. Jan Aushadhi Diwas, it is observed on 7th of March every year in India. This day, it serves as the culmination of a week-long event, which commenced on 1st of March. It is aimed at raising awareness about generic medicines and their potential to benefit millions of individuals nationwide. On this day, medical experts and people from the fraternity, they meet and discuss the Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana. The government has set a target to increase the number of Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Kendras, the centers, to 10,500 by March of 2025. If we have a look at the history of this commemoration, this day, the inception of this day can be traced back to 2019, when the Prime Minister for our country, he introduced it as a part of the Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana. This is now the international segment, and this is also another personality-related important update. First Arab woman to graduate NASA training shoots for the moon. Emirati astronaut Noura Al-Matroshi, she has graduated from NASA training program. This week, she became the first Arab woman to graduate from NASA's training program. So she is the first Arab woman to graduate from NASA's training program. However, in the private space sector, there have been certain women from this area. So though Al-Matroshi, she is the first to graduate from NASA, other Arab women, they've already participated in private space missions, including Saudi biomedical researcher Rayana Barnawi, who flew with the Axiom space to the International Space Station last year. And we also have Egyptian-Lebanese engineer Sarah Sabri, one of the crew on the 2022 Blue Origin suborbital flight. Another important update, Tiger Woods wins Bob Jones Award, which is highest US Golf Association honor. Tiger Woods has been selected to receive the Bob Jones Award, which is the highest honor from the Golf Association of United States. It recognizes his commitment to sportsmanship and respect for golf's tradition. This is a background of his victories across his long, expensive career. So Woods was inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame in 2022. And he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Donald Trump in 2019. These are some of his career wins. Bob Jones, he won the Grand Slam in 1930 when it was comprised of the US Open, the US Amateur, British Open, British Amateur. He later co-founded the Augusta National Golf Club and created the Masters. Another update from the international segment, Panama becomes the 97th member of International Solar Alliance. Panama, it has officially ratified the International Solar Alliance, marking its entry as the 97th member of this alliance. Earlier on 5th of March, Malta became the 119th country to join the International Solar Alliance. The International Solar Alliance, it was conceived as a joint effort by India and France. Currently, 116 countries are signatories to this framework agreement. Notably, the 6th Assembly of the International Solar Alliance, it was hosted at the Bharat Mandapam Pragati Maidan in National Capital on 31st of October. And with this, we proceed to the legal news updates for the day. And first up is an update from the Honorable Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has held that affidavit necessary with application under Section 156, subsection 3 CRPC, directions in Priyanka Srivastava versus State of UP, they are mandatory. So let's see what are those directions. So the Supreme Court in its recent order has stated that the directions which were issued by the court earlier in the case of Ms. Priyanka Srivastava and another versus State of UP and others, 2015, these are mandatory. The division bench of the top court was essentially hearing a criminal appeal which arose from Telangana High Court's order. The High Court had refused to quash the FIR which was registered against the accused. Several provisions of the IPC, including that of cheating, they were invoked against the accused. So while doing so, the High Court also noted that non-filing the affidavit does not vitiate the proceedings to quash the entire complaint. So in this matter, when the matter came before the Supreme Court observed that the informant had furnished the affidavit belatedly. So in the light of that, the court recorded in its order that we are of the opinion that the directions given by this court in the case of Priyanka, these are mandatory. However, in the facts of the present case, since the informant furnished the affidavit but later belatedly, so that was taken care of and noted by the Supreme Court. The name of this case is Ramesh Kumar Bung and another versus the state of Telangana and another. Moving on to another Supreme Court update itself. Article 20 doesn't prohibit court from imposing lesser punishment as per new law. The Supreme Court has recently observed that Article 20, Clause 1 of the Constitution, it does not restrict and bar the courts from imposing a lesser punishment on the basis of a new law that came into force after the date of commission of the offense. Essentially, Article 20, Clause 1, which incorporates the principle that criminal laws cannot be given retrospective operation, states that a person cannot be punished or subjected to a higher penalty on the basis of a law which was not enforced at the time of the offense. So it is the generally accepted principle, no, that whenever you're committing any offense, you're liable to the extent which is made punishable or made as an offense by the law which is in force. तभी तो जब हम काफी सारे बैरेट के प्रोविजंस देखते हैं तो वहां पर ऐसा लिखा होता है with respect to so and so law for the time being in force. So similar principle is also here in Article 20, but the court noted that the prohibition which is contained in Article 20 of the Constitution, it is on subjecting a person to a higher punishment than which is applicable for that offense at the time of commission of the crime. So there is no restriction and prohibition, however, for this court to impose a lesser punishment which is now applicable for the same crime. The name of this case is Messrs. A.K. Sarkar and Company and another versus the state of West Bengal and others. With this, we come to an end of our TNA. Thank you for watching. And in case you want to get access to the slides and the free material that LawSikho curates, please feel free to join our Telegram channel, and you know the drill. Click on the link which is given in the description of this video, or you may scan the barcode available on your screen. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.